The topics and opinions expressed on the following show are solely those of the hosts and their guests and not those of W4WN Radio, its employees, or affiliates. We make no recommendations or endorsements for radio show programs, services, or products mentioned on air or on our web. No liability, explicit or implied, shall be extended to W4WN Radio, its employees, or affiliates. Any questions or comments should be directed to those show hosts. Thank you for choosing W4WN Radio.
Welcome to Aging Like a Badass. I'm Kimberly Price, your 40-something host, and I'm on a mission to create the trusted spaces to help you navigate life's wrinkles. Hide from uncomfortable conversation? Not a chance. The raw and real is the rocket fuel that ignites change, and there is no better time than the present to excavate the messy and activate your inner superpower to create a life you love. So stick around and get ready to learn the tips, tricks, and truths to age like a badass, because wrinkles aren't the problem, they're the solution.
Welcome back to Aging Like a Badass. I'm Kimberly Price, your host, and today we have special guest, Meg Joy. She is a beautiful, energetic human who is in the middle of life transition right now. And today we get to chat with her about her career, her future, where she's been and where she's going. So welcome, Megan, to the show.
Hi, thank you so much for having me, Kimberly. I am very grateful to be here with you.
Yeah, I'm so excited to have you here today. How's your day going so far?
Pretty good. It's great weather, and I just got a good workout in, so I cannot complain. My husband just left for a couple of days for military duty, so I got the house to myself, which is kind of nice once in a while.
Yeah. It's always a joy here to have a little time to myself too. 4 kids, all the things going on. So today I wanted to dive into, you and I got to know each other on Instagram. And I wanted to dive into a little bit of your story today, because I know that there are a lot of women out there that are going through similar transitions, similar life changes to what you have been through and are going through. You have some big things on the horizon. You've had a lot of changes in the last 6 months. And with your permission, asked you to be on the show today to talk about some of those things that have been happening in your life. You are transitioning out of a decade in your 20s. You are now moving into your 30s. And so the first question that I wanted to ask you today is there anything that you would say has significantly changed in this very short period of time of going from 29 to 30 years old?
That's a great question. And I was talking about this with some friends recently. I think it sounds kind of silly, maybe to some, but I honestly feel like turning 30 did kind of change a lot of things for me. I don't know if it was more mental, but I also just went through a lot of hardship, a lot of big changes with moving and fertility struggles and changes in my career. So just everything my whole world has been shifting on its axis. And I was in a really dark hole, actually. And the day of my 30th birthday, it just felt like everything changed. I mean, I had a great birthday, which certainly helped, but I don't know. I was just like, it's kind of like a new decade of life. It's kind of like a clean slate. Like, okay, now I can just say, that was me in my 20s. This is me in my 30s. And we're just going to start fresh and start focusing on what's the next decade going to bring, I guess. I don't know. It is a pivotal time for sure. Yeah.
And so you've shared a little bit about, being in 20s for me is quite some time ago. So I can tell you that as I'm approaching 50, 20s feels like a long time ago to me. 30s is obviously closer. But there's a lot of advice and a lot of wisdom that those of us that have been along the journey can offer, and a lot of wisdom that you can offer to women in their 20s. So you got married, your husband's in the military. You talk about you've had these fertility struggles, and recently in the last 6 months, and actually a lot shorter than that, you've had a miscarriage. You had a career that now you're shifting into something new. And so what would be a piece of advice that you could offer to women? And we're going deep here before we get into your story. What would be a piece of advice that you could offer to women moving through these stages of that often happen in our sometimes our early 20s, mid 20s, late 20s of the getting married, the having the house, the starting the career, the starting the family, and those expectations and those dreams that we build that often don't necessarily go in the order that society likes to put those together for us?
Yeah, this is a great question. And honestly, the first thing that really came to my heart here is, and I'm speaking to my younger self as well here, is to really just stay true to your deepest desires. And I think that is a lot easier said than done. But in your 20s, we're still so young, and I'm 30, but I'm still so young and still trying to navigate this crazy life. And life is hard enough, but then you add in the challenges of every season, whether it's getting married, which is a beautiful time, but you're going to be challenged and stretched in ways that you never thought possible, creating a life with another human and having children, or going for your big girl job, or deciding maybe you don't like that, or whatever it is. And I guess, like I said, I'm speaking to my younger self when I say this, but don't be afraid to make changes that you're kind of feeling these heart tugs for. Because I am definitely like a non-traditional type person, in the sense that I'm not afraid to make changes when I feel in my heart that something is no longer for me. I am fully grateful for that time it served in my life, and it made impact in other people's lives. But it doesn't have to be for me for the rest of my life. And it's okay to change. It's okay to evolve. It's okay to recreate yourself as many times as you need to. And really not feeling shame around that, because I do think, at least in my experience, there's a lot of expectations. There's a lot of pressure to do things a certain type of way. And even speaking to your closest of friends and family, they may not understand you, but it's okay. As long as you really get to know yourself and just have that belief and that confidence that I'm going to be okay no matter what. And I'm going to do this because that's what I feel like I need right now. Just do it and don't look back, and just stay strong in your belief and forge forward. That's the best thing I got.
Advice. Yeah, that's great advice. So where during this time, because I know your husband's been away too, and so where during this time of, all of these things, all of these changes happening, what's been your foundation in that? What's been the pieces or piece of something that you've been able to hang on to and keep moving forward? Because you talked about, the darkness, and it often takes us going into that darkness in order to be able to kind of walk through and then see a light on the other side. So what has been the thing that's held you solid in continuing to want to move forward?
Well, I guess those waters were a little wavy for a little while. It always used to be fitness. It always used to be working out really hard. But that changed along the way because I had to go on a healing journey, because I burnt myself out with that. And so it's a great question, because in this time of change, it's also been a new level of discovery with myself and how to lean into those other areas. So for me, it's been a lot of projects around the house. I refinished like my fireplace. I painted the shutters. I was just doing all these things. I'm building this immaculate chicken coop with my husband when he is home, and just things that allow me to bring out my creative side, because that's what brings me peace. It allows me to kind of escape the reality, so to speak. And my business really did that for me as well. To be honest, I'm very much a career-driven woman. I've had my business for 6+ years now, and, creating the marketing and just speaking to other women, and I think creative outlets of any kind.
Yeah.
That's what helps me. Even like coloring. I have like those adult coloring books.
Yeah. Yeah. Those are fun.
With a glass of wine and some music, and you just color. Sometimes that could be relaxing.
Yeah.
But all in all, just always wanting to be the best version of myself, and I don't ever want to give up, and just always reminding myself that I've done hard things and I've made it through my hardest days, and I will forever be able to do that no matter how hard it gets, because I'm strong and I've proven that to myself before. So it's kind of just a little gentle reminders.
Yeah. How about your community? Do you have a good support community? I know you've recently moved, and so that can be a challenge, establishing a community in a community. Do you feel like community has been a big part of your journey?
I would say yes, for sure. We actually moved back to where we were born and raised. So we're back with family. My parents are 20 minutes away, his mom and dad and old friends. I've been spending a lot more time with old friends and reminiscing, which has been beautiful as well. So, we're all in an interesting time of our life, whether we're my group of friends, whether we're 28 to 40. It's just really, really good to be able to have those open and honest conversations. So for sure, I'm more surrounded than I've ever been by friends and family, which is nice.
Yeah. So we've walked a little bit through some of the things that you've gone through. If, with your permission, and obviously, whatever detail you'd like to share about what those have been, I know there's a lot of women out there today that are really struggling with this journey, this life journey. It doesn't matter if they're in their 20s or they're in their 30s or 40s or 50s. There's an identity crisis happening in all decades. Not knowing who you are, not being able to be grounded in who you are. We hear a lot of things online, self-care and self-love and self-discovery, but there's not really a pathway to get there. Not a specific pathway. It's a journey, right? And we have to discover those things on our own. And your journey has taken you to different places up until now. And there's a lot of women, who are new in marriage, who are having similar struggles with fertility, who have walked in the shoes that you've been in. And I know that's been a really hard road, not just from the standpoint of loss, but your physical body goes through things, the hormone changes that you've experienced. Your husband was away during some of that. And so I would love for this to be an opportunity for you to share whatever pieces of that you feel comfortable sharing, so that if there are women on the other side of this, it offers them some hope in, what is ahead of them, and the light that is ahead of the darkness that they might be experiencing right in this moment.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. I mean, I'm a very open book, so I won't really hold back anything. So if there's any questions you feel you want to ask, honestly, I really am an open book, especially if it can help other women in such what feels like a lonely place, but it's really not a lonely place. We just have to be willing to open up a little bit and reach out. But you started your question with not clinical, but an identity crisis. And that's so interesting because I had a clinical identity crisis when I was 24. It was one of the most embarrassing, but also pivotal moments of my life. And I think that was the biggest thing that changed everything for me, even now going through these fertility struggles where it is really hard when, my husband and I were trying. This was actually our second miscarriage that we just had. This whole year has been kind of consumed with that, because it was January 30th. We found out we were pregnant. Couldn't be more excited because we were trying for a year and a half. We had gone to a fertility specialist, and I had an HSG procedure done. He got testing done. I got testing done. And it was, no, everything looks great, which was wonderful news, because I know that's not always the case, of course.
Right.
But it was also extremely frustrating, because it's like, well, then why is it taking us so long? And our friends could go off birth control and the next month they're pregnant. So there's a lot of triggering things, I think, that do happen that you can easily internalize. But at the end of the day, I think kind of like what I alluded to earlier is just reminding myself that I'm not going to lose the faith that it will happen when it's supposed to. We're still seeing a fertility specialist. We're actually talking about starting next month ovulation induction therapy. And I can unleash a whole lot of thoughts around like what I'm processing with like actualizing what my next steps are going to be. It's a strange place, but I keep just telling myself that I just have to keep taking care of myself, because I don't want to get lost in motherhood, trying to become a mother. And then when it does happen, I don't want to get lost in that. I don't want to get lost in being an army wife, because I've been there before, trying to be the best I possibly could. I don't want to get lost in being a homemaker and trying to make everything look perfect all the time and feeling embarrassed when somebody comes over and there's crap all over the house. Like, I've really taught myself to let go a lot of these unrealistic expectations in that regard, but also making sure that I'm always taking care of myself. Because when motherhood does finally come, if I'm not taking care of myself, I'm not going to be the mother that I dream about all the time. So,
and that's really great advice.
Well, thank you.
It really is. And it's a good reminder that, and we can say this and say this and say this, and people have to adopt this. They have to accept this and hear, but you have to take care of yourself first, always. You know, it's the oxygen mask you've got to put on your own first before you administer, you know, to anyone else. And it's so true. It is so true.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I don't know. That's how I live by, I guess. It's a hard journey to go on. And I think I probably talk about it every day with my closest friends. Just, where are you at now? Like, what's going on now? I just had a fertility appointment 2 days ago. And it's hard, especially when your best of friends are announcing their pregnancies. And I don't know.
It's joy, and there's grief, and there's a whole lot of emotion in it. Well, I want to say, first of all, I appreciate you being so open to talk about this. I know that it's hard. I, am surrounded by women that have walked through what you've walked through, are walking through what you're walking through. And, I'm a listener. I am not one that experienced that, but these people are close family, friends. And I know this is a topic that it's been very helpful for them to have others that were willing to talk, because it is something that has been, I don't know if the word is stigmatized, taboo. We don't talk about it. This is too personal. There's too much pain behind it. There's a lot of opinions around, the different choices that you can and can't make, and why and how. I have a girl, became friends with her. Gosh, it's probably been almost 10 years ago now. She had cancer at a very early age, had to make the decision to have, she couldn't have children, and now is walking through the process of adoption. And, all of the stages of things, that she's been through, and she's sharing her story and how helpful that can be. So, so appreciative of you sharing, these things, because they're deeply personal. And it's not, even though you might say you're an open book, it's not something that's necessarily easy to share. So.
Yeah. And I appreciate you saying that, truly. Actually, when you were saying that, what came up for me is, like, we hear about these things all the time. They are common, whether it's your friend that you were just mentioning, like, her reality is she had to accept a really, really hard reality of, this is your life now, and this is the option that you have. There are no other options. And I have a really close friend of mine who endured 5 miscarriages in the last year, one of which was when she was 4.5 months pregnant. So by sharing, I made a post on social media. One, for me, that was super healing, in that it opened up the door for a lot of communication with other women who either they reached out and thanked me and said this, it made them feel comfortable that they could talk to someone. And it also helped me to just exchange more of the emotions that I was going through. And I think that while sometimes it got a little frustrating to hear, and I'm going to be totally honest here, everyone is always going to say, don't lose hope, don't lose hope, don't lose this,
Yeah.
and they're going to tell you to, stay positive and it's going to happen. And you hear a lot of the same things over and over again. And it gets frustrating. I actually read this Pinterest article that spoke right to me. And it was like the 10 things that are going to annoy you when you're on this journey. And I was like, yes, she's right about all of them. And they're things that are insignificant. Like they seem insignificant, but she was dead on. I mean, the week after I had my DNC, which was March 10th, I picked up my groceries in like the Wegmans pickup line. Like you just order them online, and I went and picked them up, and there was mud all over my back seat because I have 2 dogs and I took them hiking. And the woman opens my back seat to put the groceries in, and she's like, "Oh, you must have kids," or something along those lines. And I just had the DNC like 3 days ago, and I it's like a little comment like that. You just never realize what other people are going through. And there's like society's norm of, if we were talking about, get married and have kids. And I don't know, when you go through different struggles like this, whether it's cancer or it's, I don't know, my friend just lost her grandfather the other day, or you lose a parent, or fertility struggles. I just think like whatever it is that you're going through, we just don't think about it. We don't think about what they have to actualize and how that changes your perception on everything. I don't know. My perception has changed on everything this last year. Hence why I'm making massive changes in my life.
Yep. How do you feel that women could create a supportive network or community that understands and can empathize with the experiences that you're having? What do you think would be, as you think of how things are, and I don't have this answer, right? This is just something I'm thinking about. And, if this was something we were to explore, what are ways that we as women in community could come together to be supportive and really not just supportive, more understanding and empathetic? Like if I could have given you, because I met you right in the middle of this, you and I were having conversations days after. And if there was something that I could have done or been or said in those moments, do you know what that would have been for you?
That's a good question.
What does understanding look like, I guess? And this is we're just exploring, right?
Yeah. Well, I think in the initial moments, right? Because every stage is so different. It's when you go through something like that, it's a roller coaster. I mean, you have this utmost excitement the day you get that test. I was freaking out like a lunatic, and I was trying to hold it from my husband, and he's like, "Why do you have a smirk on your face?" And I was like turning around, it's just this unbelievable excitement and just this high, and just you start to like think about all the things that are about to change, and then so quickly that's taken away from you, and it's like it's the worst feeling in the world. And I think, at least for me, like I said, it was really helpful to put it out there. But through all the stages of like acceptance and putting yourself back out into society, and like hearing those little comments like at the grocery store, or getting your nails done and hearing her tell someone she's pregnant, or whatever it may be, there's so many different triggers around. And I think just maybe being constantly reminded that you don't have to play, like you don't have to put your shell on. You don't have to play like you're okay. You could talk about it. You can cry. Whatever you got to do. You can self-isolate for a day and just binge on Netflix if that's what you want to do. Like whatever you want to do, like it's okay. And I think just not hearing those basic Like, it's going to be okay. Like, it'll happen. Don't stress because you're not supposed to stress and it'll happen. Don't think about it. Like the typical things that you hear. And I know they're said from good intention and they're said out of love, but the actual reality of the situation is, unless you go through it, it's unexplainable. So you just need somebody there to like ask questions, ask basic questions like, well, how does it make you feel? How does that make you feel? To help you like actualize what you're going through. Because it's really easy to just, for me anyways, drive on.
Yeah.
There's which we do, drive on.
Yeah, we do that. I mean, humanity does that. Women do that. I mean, that's a very common response. As you were talking, I was thinking to myself, asking questions almost like permission questions. Where are you at today with this? Is today a day that you feel like you can share some things? You know, getting kind of this heartbeat for where a person is at in the stages, because from the outside, and especially somebody that hasn't experienced this, they won't have any idea what to ask you. You may need a certain thing asked, but I think, you know, also in these places, we need to be able to see that the people that are listening might not be able to understand. So what I hear is there needs to be more understanding and listening, and that needs to go both directions. That needs to be able to happen, you know, both from the person experiencing whatever they're experiencing, in addition to the person that's coming in and listening, you know, in and stuff. So, I think it has to go both ways for sure. And I think asking questions like, well, is today a good day to have a conversation, or should we shift, you know, I can call you tomorrow, or where are you at in this? You know, so that you can share from a place of, and you might not know. And so then you being able to say, well, in all honesty, I don't know today. I just don't know. Yeah. I don't even know what to share today. And then me being able to say to you, well, is there anything that I can do for you today? Is there anything that you need today? And then you can say yes or no. And so it's more of, I think we're such poor communicators. And I heard you say, you know, I know this comes from a good place, and I'm learning to be a better communicator also. It's a process, but I think we really need to wake up to how we miscommunicate, especially in times of crisis when people are dealing with hard things, because there's going to be a lot of things in life I don't experience that others do, or you don't experience that others do. And so how do we become better listeners, better understanders, have more empathy for a situation?
Yeah, that's the word that has been coming up as you're talking. I'm like, empathy. Just be more empathetic and present. And I think that's a big one too, is being present in who is right in front of you. Who are you actually talking to? Yeah. Where are they actually at in their life journey? Are they looking forward to something that's going on right now? Are they still struggling with something? And you're right, just being a better listener, but being more empathetic and asking and actually caring with those basic questions. We can't possibly understand one, even if we do walk the same path as someone, we can't possibly understand how they're handling that, because we could go through the same thing and handle it completely different because of our other perceptions of reality. So it doesn't even matter, you know? So it's those basic questions for sure of just, how are you? Like, how are you really? I don't know if you know who Jenna Kutcher is, but I love her book, How Are You Really? That was a book that I read recently going through all of this as well. And it was really helpful.
Yeah, it is. And it's a question that I don't. And what's interesting is we hear that, and a lot of people will take that and go, oh, that's really good. I'm going to start asking people, how are they really? And then you actually get to sit in the space of listening to how are they really? Because I think that's the part we don't do well. The asking is the easy part. It's the sitting in, how is someone really doing? That's the hardest. And the reason I think often that happens is because they're uncomfortable. They're uncomfortable in your pain. They're uncomfortable in their own experience of what that might be like, their own fear of maybe things that they've had going on and or how you might react or respond. And so listening and understanding is difficult for them because they have to deal with emotions and things that they aren't ready to deal with.
Yeah, absolutely. I can totally see that. It brings up a lot of different triggers and you're not even realizing it until you get into that conversation.
Yeah. So I want to ask you, what are your hopes and dreams? What are the things that, you talked about when you got pregnant, that joy that you had in experiencing, knowing there was a life inside you that was growing, and that that's a possibility in the future. So are you going to allow yourself, are you going to give yourself permission to experience that again?
That's a really good question. That's something, it's a big loaded question for sure. But I do remember asking myself, and even my girlfriend that I've been able to lean into throughout all of this has been really helpful because she walked a similar path of, am I going to be excited again when I get pregnant for the third time? Because the previous 2 times were not a good experience for me. And I still am going to, because I'm not going to lose hope. And, my dreams, my husband and I want to have a family more than anything. We talk about it a lot. We're not that couple that talks deeply on a regular basis, but when we do, we do. And we just have these big goals and dreams of, and I love my mom and my dad and his mom and his dad, but we want to change the trajectory of our family we want to create more opportunity. We want to create generational wealth is something that's really important to us. And just giving our children a life that we didn't have is just something, we're not even parents yet. And we talk about it all the time of just like what we can provide for them and what that's going to do to give them more options in life, to explore who they really are and to be able to be so solid in themselves as a person. Because I definitely didn't have that. I was definitely somebody who people pleasing, kind of like, I don't know, passive aggressive behaviors I was exposed to a lot. And just learning to be a quiet little girl was something that, was a big part of my story. So amongst that, making a career change to be able to align with that. My husband's, we're very career driven right now to be able to retire at a young age and have the things that we want with the people that we want and the experiences and the travel and the family and the friends. So I guess just more like experiential and just living out your truest self is at the core of everything that I do.
Yeah. So what can you do to prepare for having this next time and experiencing that joy again, allowing yourself to experience the joy of something that you want to, even though the other side of you fights it because it hasn't been what you expected, in your heart, it's still something will bring you great joy.
Oh yeah.
And so what are the things you can think about that could prepare you to be able to allow your heart to feel that joy again?
Well, I think just remaining hopeful and leaning into my faith, of course. I think it comes down to like taking care of yourself and just know, like, I've already kind of sort of had this conversation with myself to that, as long as I just keep taking care of myself and keep doing everything in my power, what will be, will be. And when that day comes, I will be excited again because I'm not going to hold on. I'm going to try as much as I can, I should say, to not lean into that fear that I know is going to come up anyways. And I think having a conversation like this and journaling and, just being real with myself that I'm allowed to be excited again, but also I'm allowed to be fearful again.
Yes.
And it's okay. And I'm not going to let the past shape my future. So I don't know what's going to happen, but I'm sure as heck going to try to lean into it as much as I can. And actually, this whole experience too, while going through all of this, it was an eye-opener for my business and the business structure that I was running off of, and the fact that I couldn't show up for a little while like I was, and that really hurt my business. And I had to really work through a lot of those emotions, but put things into perspective of, oh crap, like when life really happens, I'm not a mom yet. And this was very devastating, of course, but then I started to future pace myself even more of what's going to happen with all these doctor's appointments? What's going to happen when they get sick? What's going to happen when this happens? So I really started to think differently about my career, about our day-to-day life, and just leaning into that and like, okay, who do I want to be when that comes? And not trying to, have anxiety about it or anything, but truly just making sure that I'm in alignment.
Yeah.
And it was eye-opening for me, to say at the least.
Yeah. So taking some of the things and being able to turn those into good perspective, good steps for planning for your future, which is great. So can you share a little bit, and you can tell me no, can you share a little bit about what you're planning for? Because you've got some new career things that you're playing around with, some new things you're going to be doing. And is there any part of that you can share without sharing it all?
Yeah. So big picture, what I've been up to for the last, it's evolved over the last 6 years, but coaching women in their health, fitness, wellness, evolved into functional medicine, holistic medicine, hormones, gut health, healing the body, all that. I love it. Love it, love it, love it. But I am deciding to take all of that. I have proof of concept. I've worked as a clinical advisor actually with the school, saw a lot of patterns with the testing, saw a lot of patterns with the protocols and the results. So I'm putting it into a self-paced course at a very, very accessible and affordable cost. That's probably ridiculous to offer, but because I've made my impact that I wanted to with those women one-on-one, and because we've got such amazing feedback, I'm ready to kind of just say, okay, I created this, it's there, and I just want to give it away almost to those who need it, and create still a Facebook community for support, having that there. But now it's time for me to move on and face my next challenge, which is actually going to med school. That is where I'm with everything, which is crazy because we're also still seeing a fertility doctor and focusing on that. And some may say that may be out of alignment, like taking on a huge goal like that. But honestly, I don't think so. I think it's just going to allow us to lean into our support system more. My husband's father is retiring soon, and he wants to be here more for us, and just like it takes a village, as they say. And I think, I don't know, I just like to challenge myself. So that's where I'm heading. I'm still keeping my doors open to help women in that space, but not at that level. I at least can stay plugged in with the other practitioners and say, oh, if you do want testing, let me point you in that right direction. But my focus, my primary is over here. But I just cannot abandon the work that I've done up until this point. So it's like the only container that makes sense,
Yeah. And you will learn ways and discover ways to incorporate that in as you move through this new journey also.
Yeah.
It'll just open a tremendous amount of other doors for you, in the medical world. And it's so needed, really practitioners that have worked on the holistic side of things, are working in root cause, and then moving into and taking the medical paradigm and bridging the gap really between the two, integrating. So we hear the word integrative medicine a lot now, and we need both. in order for people to be
Yeah.
healthy. So yay, I'm so excited for you. This is exciting.
Thanks.
Yeah.
I'm freaking
And I
out,
am
but
always, well, you can always call me because I'm always of the thinking that there's no dream too big and you are young. There's zero
Aw.
reason why, if this is a dream, you shouldn't go for it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Super
Yeah.
exciting.
Thank you for that. I'm very
Good.
excited. Also nervous for all the changes it's going to bring, but I know it's going to be good changes. So I'm very
Yes.
excited.
But you're strong. You've been through a lot. You know, it's not anything that you can't take on, and you'll find a way. You'll find a way.
Thank you.
Surround yourself with supportive people, and
Yeah.
you'll do amazing.
Thank you. You know what's
Yeah.
crazy? When I went through, I mentioned earlier this clinical identity crisis that I went through when I was 24 years old. That was relative to what I feel like I just went through. Like it was on that level of being in a black hole, so to speak. And what's really interesting is this is the second time that I felt that way, and I'm climbing out of this black hole and setting these massive challenges for myself. That when that happened when I was 24, that's when I started fitness competitions and bikini bodybuilding world for 3 years. And it's like that kept me grounded. For me, I have an addictive personality, which might not always be a good thing, but I feel as long as I'm channeling it into bettering myself, that there's nothing wrong with that. And, you know, as we get older and now I'm learning balance a little bit more with all the other aspects of life, I think that is something, at least to share, that's what's helped me, is making huge commitments that are going to keep me accountable to taking care of myself. Because I can't possibly go on this journey not taking care of myself. So it's kind of like a massive commitment, I guess, I'm making.
Well, I think that's a great way to wrap up is, you know, really when we focus on, you know, identity and that self-care that has to go along with that, and really keeping that the focus in everything that you do moving forward. And it's an evolution. You know, you're only 30 years old. You're going to find that this whole uncovering of your identity will continue to happen. You'll continue to grow. Life will continue to happen. So we all are going to continue to have these experiences that are going to shape us, and we're going to grow from those, and we're going to move forward, and we're going to keep growing and growing. And so as long as you keep that open mind of keep growing, keep taking care of yourself, keep uncovering, you know, what's in here, and as little as possible, you know, along the journey. And I'm still in this also, not looking so much to the outside to give you that affirmation and confirmation of who you are, because it's all already in here, and it's growing with you, and you get to keep tapping into that along the journey. So I'm excited. So where can the listeners find you if they want to connect with you and their stories? They want to ask you more questions. They want to learn more about you and what you're doing. Where can they find you?
Yeah, sure. And if anybody is listening who has gone through or is going through anything fertility wise, I'm walking it. I mean, like I said, we're starting some crazy journeys right now, but I'm trying to stay positive. But I hang out on Instagram mostly, but a little quiet on social media, just trying to take care of myself. But Instagram mostly at this is Megan Joy, with this _ Megan Joy, or even Facebook. I have a private Facebook community that has about 800 women, and we just kind of are pretty open in there. So if you're interested in joining that, it's all like holistic health and wellness, but honestly, any topic flies in that group. So you could shout out to me on the DMs, and I can give you the invite to get in there. But yeah,
that's great.
I'm an open book. So if you feel like talking, I'm here.
Yeah. Megan is amazing, super easy to talk to, full of light and hope. So if, you know, anyone is listening to this and wants to reach out, she is sincere and just an amazing person to connect with. So thank you for being here. Loved it. Appreciate you so much. Appreciate your heart and your honesty, vulnerability today. I know it's not easy. I know you've been walking through some really hard things, but you've got a community of people that love you, support you, and, a community out there waiting. Your story is so important, and so important for women that, you will be the light for many that helps them get through to that next stage. So we appreciate you, Megan. And thank you to the listeners for being here today. We love having you tune in to hear us every Thursday at 1 p.m. Eastern Time here on Aging Like a Badass. Have a great week.
This is Kimberly Price, your 40-something host of Aging Like a Badass. See you every Thursday at 1 p.m. Eastern Time on W4WN Radio as we come together to break the rules, ignore the critics, and age like a badass.